Kick Fund is the venture capital firm that invests in Switzerland's best deep tech startups right after they graduate from the Venture Kick competition. Kick Fund has the largest and most diversified deep tech portfolio in the country, which makes it practically an index fund. For startup founders, Kick Fund is the easiest VC they'll work with.
As a startup, you pass through different phases, like an accordion. There are phases where you really have to go wide to identify where are the opportunities. This is what we did at the beginning. Then there are cases where you now have to narrow to focus on what you believe.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Merle.
Welcome to another episode of the Swisspreneur podcast. Today I'm joined by Panos, or short Panos.
Very good.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to talk to you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very excited to share our story.
So you are a co-founder and CEO of Irmos Technologies,
Exactly.
which is harnessing intelligent data to protect critical infrastructure.
Correct.
But tell us first a little bit about you. So you trained as a civil engineer before moving into sensing and data-driven structural analysis. What originally sparked your interest in combining physical infrastructure and digital intelligence, or what made you move into that field?
Well, first of all, I have to confess that civil engineering was never my passion from the very beginning. When I started studying back in 2008 in Greece, I was a good student, and at the time civil engineering was one of the top schools. So my intention was to get a degree that would guarantee me that I would find a job in Greece.
Mm.
And I graduated in 2013. It was right after the crisis. There were no jobs in Greece. And then I managed to get a little bit curious about civil engineering. I was very passionate about physics.
Mm-hmm.
And civil engineering is applied physics. I like structural mechanics. I wanted to deepen a little bit into this science and try to figure out which is the best university to do it in Europe. And ATH came up first, so I applied. Likely I was accepted, and then I did a second master's here to really deep into topics that I found interesting at the time. And then after 7 years of studies, I thought, okay, now it's time really to get some professional experience and let's see what real civil engineers do. So I went to the industry. I worked as a professional engineer for 3 years, which is a good time to really start to get an overview of what's happening out there and how the works look like. It's also the time when things start getting repetitive, and you feel actually quite skilled and you can be efficient. This was exactly the time where I also felt that I could see the ceiling of being a structural engineer. I could see the limitations. And at the time, what really, really bugged me was that as a structural engineer, when you have to evaluate a building or a bridge, then the data that you have are very limited. Mm-hmm. In the best case, you have some obsolete drawings, and then you have to make a conclusion about the integrity of a huge asset. So the uncertainties are very big. And I wanted to find a way to reduce these uncertainties. And then an opportunity came up at ETH for a PhD by the Chair of Structural Mechanics and Monitoring, where I did my master thesis before. And I thought that's a great opportunity for me to combine data with engineering practice, because I really saw that data is missing there. And then I came back to university and I did my PhD. But I will close now this answer here so we can leave something for the next question.
Was there any experience that you had that kind of shaped the way you think about structural reliability?
I remember a particular case which might sound minor, but I think it reflects quite well how engineering is done today. We had a particular challenge for an existing building, which as civil engineer, when you evaluate a building, the civil engineer is some sort of the calculator partner of an architect. And the architect came with this idea, and then we had two options. Either to completely reject this idea and say, look, this is not possible, we go traditionally, and then the architect makes a compromise, and then we are a little bit, let's say, we can sleep calmer than if we would go the other path. And the other path would be really to dig deeper, to try really to push a little bit engineering at the limits beyond what is prescribed in the guidelines. And I was confident that actually this was not too risky at the time. And I pressed myself to really, let's do it, not for the architects, because it's possible and because this is what at the end of the day makes a good engineer out of somebody who just wants to get things done. And then we did it. And then I also took the opportunity to talk to the university, to get some sensors, collect some data, validate that our assumptions were valid. And this really sparked actually this idea that we can always get things done. There are tons of engineering offices out there. They will get things done, and then the next project will come. The real question, what at least excites me, is how you can really push a little bit the limits further, how you can challenge the status quo. And this was for me actually the decision maker, that I need to find ways to do it, and I need to find ways to enable others to do it, because if I'm just an expert that can do one thing better than the others, the impact is very small. If I could enable other engineers to do similar things, and this way enable good engineers to stand out from engineers that, let's put it like this, a little less motivated to go the extra mile, this would be great. And this sparked this first jump, I would say, from the industry back to academia.
Yeah. So tell us, what exactly does Irmos do?
Irmos is a technology company. We build technology to literally revolutionize the way we treat the maintenance of existing bridges. The way we do it is we bring technology both on hardware and software that is scalable. On the hardware side, we build purpose-designed sensors that are very cost efficient and can be deployed in scale. And on the software side, we go a couple of steps farther in the interpretation of data than other companies do, so that owners of large portfolios of bridges, they can use data to compare bridges with each other, to rank them, and identify risks before even getting to the point to conduct a thorough structural assessment.
Okay. And how did you and your co-founders meet?
It's a funny story. I would like maybe to start a little bit a step before that. In order to work with data, you need data. And if you want to get data from a bridge or a building that you cannot bring in the lab and instrument it everywhere, then it gets a little bit more complicated because of accessibility, privacy, you name it. There was an additional challenge that I did my research in COVID time. So organizing visits, instrumentation was extremely complicated at the time. So we had to become creative. And with the support of some friends, which is also another interesting story, which I would not like now to to put on the table, I came to the idea of monitoring demolitions, placing sensors on buildings and bridges that are to be demolished, so nobody cares about accessibility. We could collect data from healthy and damaged state. And I based all my research on this data set that I got out of 15 buildings that we monitor and 3 bridges under demolition. But of course, to do this, you could not use expensive sensors from the lab. So I had to really start building cost-efficient sensors that I could use for my research. So at the time, I had no idea about startups, no idea about Irmos, no idea about anything. But when I monitored the first building and I collected the data, I realized that, okay, this is exciting. This might be interesting also for other researchers. And then I went to EPFL through my Professor Hadzi from Structural Mechanics and Monitoring, connected me to the corresponding chair, I would say, at EPFL. And then I visited EPFL and I met the team there, and I showed them my idea that, this is the first building, but we can monitor 10, 20 buildings, collect data, and then we have a huge database. Blah, blah. It was Professor Lestuzzi at the time and Dr. Roiland, a postdoc at EPFL. They were very excited. And I think a couple of months later, a postdoc position opened at ETH, and Dr. Roiland came to ETH, and he became actually my supervisor. Mm. And when a few years later, if we go fast forward, he became the CTO of Irmos, and I took care of the business part. At the beginning, we also had colleagues from ETH that joined us to support the development of hardware and software. But the core of Irmos, so the IP behind what we built, is between me and my co-founder that we met 6 years ago, exactly under this circumstance.
Was there like a real world case that made you realize that the status quo at that time, or that the monitoring was not enough?
There was actually one case that the story is that we incorporated Irmos after we had the first contract on the table. It was about a very prominent asset, let's call it a bridge for now. And there were some issues with this bridge. So there were a lot of questions from the engineer who evaluated this asset, whether a couple of cracks they observed, whether they are static cracks, so relevant for the integrity, or just surface cracks that do not really matter.
Yeah.
I met these engineers at an event, at a conference, where I was presenting what we built at ETH. They were presenting their case study and how they deal with it. And then we discussed during the pause, and I invited them to ETH to discuss a little bit further about their case and how maybe data could help them overcome these problems they had. They came to ETH, had a very interesting discussion. Then they connected us to Astra, to Federal Office for Transportation in Switzerland, who was the owner, so the final client. And the client trusted us, and they gave the go that, yes, if you really can do it, then let's do it. And then we incorporated the company, and this was our first project, and it still runs.
So can you walk us through like the day-to-day operation? So your work helps infrastructure owners preserve bridges for longer, basically. How does that show up in day-to-day operations? So how does it exactly work from a client's perspective?
It's a very good question, and this is something that we continuously try to figure out with our clients, how they deal with it. What happens today is that maintenance is heavily based on visual inspections. Every couple of years, an inspector visits the bridge and examines key parts of the bridge, like the supports or the structure itself, whatever is accessible, whatever is visible. And they make a report. They take some photos and they report, we saw cracks there, we saw some corrosion here, something there. But this is all local information. It, of course, is some very important information, but it's similar like, an examination, a doctor examination that is limited to what is visible from outside. And then there is a department within our clients that takes the decision, where do we invest next? Which is, let's say, the pain points at the portfolio level. Of course, there are many other parameters that they have to consider because, of course, maintaining a bridge has an influence on the traffic, and they have to take this into account and properly time the maintenance. But as far as the structural integrity is concerned, the key piece of information is the inspection. If they decide that a bridge needs to be maintained, then they generate a project. They engage a structural engineer who does a thorough assessment. They prepare a plan of how to retrofit this bridge, and then it's the execution. So our layer where we step in, and right now what happens is that this is words from our clients, same bridge, same inspector, different weather, different report. This is words of our clients. And then if you see these reports, again, it's a lot of a gut feeling what a grade you would give to this bridge and how you prioritize them. Also, our clients' words that if we give any bridge right now to engineers to do a structural assessment based on whatever data we have, most probably they do not fulfill current standards.
Yeah.
We cannot close all bridges because most of them now are already 70, 80 years old, and theoretically, design lifetime is 100 years. We cannot expect that in 20 years we shut down everything because we need to replace the whole network. This will not happen. And most probably we don't have to. The question is, how can we get a little bit of understanding of how are our risks and how do the bridges compare to each other? Because exactly the same bridge in a location that has different weather, maybe a little bit more humidity, more exposed, maybe a more chemically exposed environment, would probably cause faster degradation than a bridge that is in a very stable environment, let's say like this. So how can we really assess our risks at portfolio level? How can we have a rapid test, if you like? So we know how much risk we have on the table and where we can focus our resources. And this is where we step in. We provide an extremely cost-efficient way to get information about the bridges that were never available before.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of information is that?
Our solution has 3 components. One component we call smartwatch. This is where actually we have damage indicators that relate to the stiffness of the bridge, the response of the bridge, how much the bridge deflects, how stiff the bridges are, how it vibrates, how actually the gaps of the bridge move against each other. So this is kind of a reactive way to see if the response of the bridge degrades over time. We have the predictive part, where then we observe how actually the bridge accumulates damage over time in specific locations, and what would it mean if we put some scenarios together, assuming that traffic increases X% every year, how does this accumulation increases as well, and when do we expect to reach the theoretical end of life? And then we have the part that monitors the traffic loads. For specific bridges, our system is able to convert a bridge into a weighting scale. So we can not only count the amount of trucks that cross the bridge, which is important information, but also the weight of their axles. So literally, when an engineer has to assess this bridge, they know what really happens. They do not have to take extremely conservative assumptions that come from guidelines. They know exactly what is the loading, how often it crosses the bridge. So this is golden information for an assessment when the right time comes for it.
And is your sensor employed when building the bridge, or at some point when they noticed, we should have some sort of tracking list, or maybe after the first report was done, or rather when you from the data see it's actually a little bit too late already?
Our system is built to be installed on existing bridges.
Okay.
Of course, it would be fantastic to have data from the very beginning. The point is, from the perspective of the owner, if they build a new bridge, they expect that it is healthy now and it will stay healthy until they get retired. So there is not so much of a motivation to instrument a new bridge. That's why we built a solution for the existing ones. But technically, of course, it's also possible to instrument new bridges, and it makes completely sense for very special cases where it's also where the engineers had to go a little bit beyond the conventional engineering, and they would like really to make sure that things are as expected.
And are your clients the engineers or the owners?
Very good question. Our clients, in short, are the owners, but the owners or the department within the owners, they are engineers.
I see.
And not, let's say, engineers that would do the static in their everyday life, because for this, they actually outsource this sort of activities to external offices. But the people we literally sell, usually they are structural engineers in background, so they have a technical understanding. And these are the decisions makers about maintenance of.
But would that, like owners, would that be governmental departments or?
Depending on the country, yes. So in Switzerland, we work with Astra, we work with the BLS, railway providers also own a lot of bridges. Cantonal authorities, cities also own smaller bridges. So in Switzerland, it's mainly public sector,
Yeah, interesting. Do you have clients outside of Switzerland that are private owners?
We do, but this refers to buildings. So we also monitor buildings.
Interesting.
But this makes mostly sense in seismic exposed regions.
Okay.
Where earthquake actually is the harmful event, not traffic. And then the question is, what happens right after an earthquake? Is the building still safe? Should we evacuate it? Or in this specific case, in a specific case of a hospital that we monitor, is it safe to keep the oxygen running in this building, or should we cut it down because in the next aftershock the building will have a severe damage? So, extremely interesting applications. Strategically now we focus mainly on bridges because we have very good accounts in Switzerland and outside Switzerland. Very good clients that we'd like to focus on. But for seismic prone regions, our solution is extremely promising, and we consider this as a future field for business development.
Yeah, that's super helpful. It's really cool. And what is your business model? How do you make money?
It's a very good question, yes. Look, as a startup, of course, at the beginning, it's very, very helpful if you include a little bit of consulting in whatever you do. I just disclose this because this is also what happened with us. And when I say consulting, I mean a little bit more guidance for the client in regard to the data. Business model, though, we provide now an end-to-end solution for predictive maintenance for bridges, and this includes hardware and instrumentation as an onboarding fee. The hardware we provide, the instrumentation we outsource. So there is a company that puts the sensors on the bridge. And then we have a subscription per bridge per year. And of course, the more bridges our clients have, or the more bridges they engage, the more we can, of course, optimize costs and promise even better results. Because at the end of the day, our goal, the business model is, it works considering that in the near future we'll have a very large portfolio of bridges, and this will give us the possibility to offer our clients cross-portfolio analytics. As in, like, for one bridge, instead of just saying, this bridge is doing well, it doesn't degrade over time, or it does degrade over time, the next level is compared to 100 bridges, similar type in Europe. This bridge is in the top 20%, and these are the reasons. Do you have any questions? You can ask the system, and then we will give you the results, or what happened in the past months, or what is maybe a little bit worrying, or what do we expect given the knowledge we collected from other assets. This is where it goes.
And what led you to first, or to rather move this direction than to, for example, raise a large round early on?
I think raising a large round can solve a lot of problems when it's the right time to do it, and can create many other problems if it's not the right time. We perceive our market as a slow-moving market that heavily relies on trust and references. And in this regard, right now, we believe that we are in a pole position because we work with top clients in our vicinity. If we persuade these clients that this can scale, and they scale with us, first of all, they have a huge scaling potential. And secondly, if this works with them, it will work with others later. Now, raising funds and addressing further markets, or find ways in order to occupy these people, that you raise funds to grow a team, right? And then you want to grow the team, you want to feed the team, you want actually to be more aggressive getting out the market. That's natural. Then this means that we have to talk to more clients. And if it doesn't work with these clients that we have right now, if we take the focus out of them and it doesn't work with them, it will not work with the others as well. So for us, it's not about, we believe that there is a potential there. We believe that the big round is definitely in the pipeline, and we will have discussions internally about what is the right move for Irmos. But what is very important is also to be sensible about what de-risks the company. And we believe that right now it's not the big round that de-risks the growth of the company, but rather the execution that we have planned. And we raised a round, which was not a small one, I would say, maybe not the biggest that we heard in the past weeks. And we raised a round, and we have a plan now to execute, to deliver to our clients. And We already see the signs of scaling. So with some of them, we already scale from individual bridges to portfolio. And of course, the moment we feel that the only thing missing right now is the capital, I believe it's also a good leverage when negotiating with investors that the client is ready, we are ready, we just need this capital to make it happen. So for everybody, this is a win-win situation. That's now the way we treat fundraising at Irmos.
And if you look at the ecosystem and the startup ecosystem in Switzerland around ETH, around EPFL, what were some things that helped you early on?
Yes, absolutely. I think the ecosystem in Switzerland is extremely supportive at early stage, and we were fortunate enough to get a lot of this support. I would like to name also Student Project House as the first incubator, and then Blue Lion Incubator in Zurich, extremely skillful people. Then, of course, InnoSwiss has tons of supporting programs that we profited a lot from. I would like also to name Venture Lab and Venture Geek as fantastic family of entrepreneurs and people that really are visionary beyond what somebody would expect from private company, technically, in Switzerland. So we profited a lot at the early stage. And the biggest thing that we got out of the ecosystem was the network with entrepreneurs that, they were a little bit ahead of us. A couple of months, a year or two. These are actually the people that faced the problems before. And the people that I always go back to whenever I have a question or a challenge that obviously they faced a little bit earlier than I did.
And I can imagine this field also has a lot of regulation from state, maybe, or government.
Maintaining bridges has a lot of regulations. Using data to maintain bridges, not. It's something that it's good and bad. Obviously, at the point that there are regulations, then there is no question about market fit. The regulations need to be fulfilled. You just put the sensors, you compare whatever you compare, and then you just sell, right? In our case now, because data is missing, nobody out there has data from 100 bridges that can really use. Nobody out there can really put together some guidelines that make sense, that are based on data. Because it's one thing, that I collect data in the lab, testing 1/100th of a bridge under specific conditions that I fully know. And another thing that I have data from 100 real bridges in different damage states that I monitor over 5 years, and I can tell you this. And this is where we want to go. That's why for us, actually, what we are is we are a data company. We collect data and we make it as smooth, as easy as possible for our clients to instrument their assets. Because the first one to profit out of this, it will be these same clients.
Yeah.
They want to know what happens at portfolio level. They don't care if you sell 1 or 2 bridges. This brings nothing to a portfolio of 5,000 bridges. They want something that would bring a value at 500 or 1,000 bridges. So at the level of vision, we're fully aligned with our clients.
Have you seen anything from the data that is not yet translated in regulation but should be?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And that's what makes really our work extremely exciting. We learn from the data literally every day. I could go to technical details. We're impressed ourselves. The one thing we really regret is that, we don't have the time to produce scientific work. When you do your PhD or when you produce scientific work, usually you count on 1-2 assets that you manage to monitor, and then you invest tons of efforts to learn everything from scratch, how to put the sensors together, how to collect the data, up to the point that you can actually work with the data. Already 1-2 years are gone. And now we're at the point that this is solved. We just collect data, and with every bridge we become wiser and wiser. And we have so much knowledge, but not the time to produce it to research, that sometimes we really feel it's really a pity.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was just thinking, it's like you must see so many things where like, why is it not a rule that every bridge should have that or should not have that when being built, or these things?
What helps a lot is now with every bridge that we work with, we learn, and then we put together these learnings, and next time we present to any client, we show them what's the level of data they can get, and what's the how much this actually matters, because at the end of the day, what we want to do is to safely extend the life of a bridge. Safely extend the life of the bridge. So we always try to translate all these learnings into something that is clearly understandable why it helps our clients safely extend this lifetime.
And you mentioned before that you focus on bridges, but you also already start in different fields like buildings in erosion areas. Where do you expect the earliest widespread adoption?
First of all, as a startup, you pass through different phases, like an accordion. There are phases where you really have to go wide to identify where are the opportunities. This is what we did at the beginning. We monitor a building, we monitor tunnels, we monitor bridges. And then there are cases where you now have to narrow to focus on what you believe based on the data that you have makes sense. Because with restricted resources, you cannot solve everything. You really have to use focus as an advantage compared to corporates that have more resources. So we deliberately took the decision to focus on bridges because we have very good accounts, very good clients that are interested in our solution, and they have huge scalability potential. Because in Switzerland and Central Europe, a big part of we're talking about 60% of our existing bridges have already exceeded their design lifetime. So there is time works for us. Let's put it like this. And we have references. We already have some references. So why should we go to a seismic-prone region, build a new network? For us, it makes sense. It would make sense if we could do absolutely everything. But it was a decision that we took because we believe that this has the biggest scaling potential the next months.
So what's one thing that the platform cannot do yet that you hope it can do in 2 years?
That's an excellent question. The simplest way to put it is that right now, what we can do tomorrow, if you give us a bridge, is we actually provide you tools to see this bridge as one tree, not as a forest. Right? It means we can give you some predictive and some reactive tools to monitor the integrity of the bridge and the traffic loads, but completely independent from what happens to other bridges. In 2 years' time, I hope even earlier, we'll be able to see the bridge as the tree as part of a forest, and then have this portfolio level view, where actually information can be correlated to other assets, maybe not only in Switzerland, also considering assets from other countries, from other clients, because we believe that this is extremely valuable and this is where the data will become extremely useful. The knowledge we have for a bridge is similar to the knowledge that somebody gets out of one book. But if you have read about the whole bookstore, and somebody asks you about this book, I can tell you that this is a great book. It says this, and that. But in this category, I know another 5 that are... In
comparison.
Exactly. This is where we see this going.
Is that also your future vision for the company?
Yes, absolutely. The company is... what we built is a data company. It's just part of a data company is collecting data. And we want to be there from the beginning to the end because we believe one main reason why monitoring is not established yet is because hardware instrumentation gets to become so cumbersome, so expensive, that for the clients it becomes impossible to even think that this could be deployed at portfolio level.
Yeah.
So for us, it's very important that while we're a data company, that we take this extra mile, building our own hardware, showing to the client the full story, because we want to change this mindset that it's not about this bridge. It's about what all these bridges tell us and how we can use this information to do maintenance when and where it is needed.
That's a great vision. I like it. And before we finish our conversation, I always do a round of rapid fire questions, and I will ask you, and you just say the first thing that pops into your head. So number 1, what's one fact about bridges that would surprise most people?
That they have a design lifetime.
What's the biggest lesson that your PhD taught you?
That I can do everything if I invest time and my full focus.
That's a wonderful lesson. I love it. What's one habit that keeps you grounded as a CEO?
responsibility for the team.
Mm-hmm. And if you had to describe Irmos' mission in one word, what would it be?
Inspire.
Nice. What a beautiful word to end this conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.